Hello, I want to welcome you to the Connecting Life podcast. I'm your host Dianaboskma, and I'm here to help you connect the dots of life so that you can live your best life in a healthy and fulfilling way. Today I want to talk to you about one of my favorite ways to bring people together around food while still supporting gut health. Because let's be honest, when people hear the words gut health, they often imagine restriction. They imagine saying no to celebrations, no to gatherings, no to delicious food, no to the little pleasures that make life enjoyable. But what if improving your gut health isn't about saying no at all? What if it was about learning to say yes to better things? I was thinking recently about how food has always brought people together. Long before we had supermarkets, long before packaged snacks and convenience foods were a thing, people gathered around tables. They shared whatever they had. They preserved foods through fermentation, they cured meats, they made cheeses, and they pickled vegetables and fermented vegetables. And in many ways, some of the foods that have supported human health for centuries are exactly the foods that we find on a traditional charcuterie board. Now, when most people hear the phrase charcuterie board, they picture something trendy on social media. A beautiful wooden board covered with cheeses and meats and little bowls of olives. And obviously that's what it can be, and it's beautiful. But what I love the most about them isn't just how they look. It is about what they represent. It's the variety, the tradition, the connection. And surprisingly, many of the principles that support a healthy microbiome. So today, I want to take you on a little journey around a gut-friendly charcuterie board and show you how something that feels indulgent and celebratory can also be really nourishing. So imagine for a moment that you're preparing for a gathering. It might be Christmas or a birthday or just a Saturday evening with some friends. You've cleared some space in your kitchen on the table and you laid out one of those nice large wooden boards. And now the fun begins. The first thing that you add is cheese. Not because cheese is fashionable, but because traditional cheeses are living examples of fermentation. Think about that for a moment. Milk transformed by time, bacteria, craftsmanship, and patience. So what I'm thinking about is like a good cheddar, traditional cheddar cheese, or a creamy French brie, or maybe a Dutch cheese, a mature Gouda. They can be really tasty. And then there's also the possibility of a blue cheese like Stilton, because some people like these stronger flavors, and I love a good Stilton myself. So for hundreds, and in some cases even thousands of years, because it really depends on which area of the globe we're talking about, people have fermented milk to preserve it and enhance its nutritional value. These cheeses become richness and they bring a sense of abundance, they bring good flavor, so they bring a lot to the board. But we're only just getting started, because after the cheeses, we're going to have a look at fermented vegetables. And this is where the magic really begins. What do you think about a bowl of sauerkraut, or maybe some fermented carrots? There's also traditional pickles, and what can be really tasty as well is these slices of fermented beetroot. And when you see all that together, then all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of color, and it feels so much more alive. And what the nice thing is that the sharp tang of fermented foods balances the richness of cheeses a bit, and the crunch that adds some nice texture. And for your gut microbes, these foods provide an entirely different set of compounds than the cheeses beside them do. So I often think of fermented vegetables as those heroes of the food world. They're not usually the star attraction, and nobody really walks into a room announcing that they've come for the sauerkraut, although I've experienced it once. But once it's there, it makes everything so nice and tasty because it digests so much better. And after the fermented foods, let's have a look at the fresh vegetables. So peppers, they come in different colors and they're really bright. That can be really nice on one of these boards. some cucumber slices. Radishes bring some other color, cherry tomatoes bring yet another color, and some people really love celery. You can also have carrot sticks, and some people really enjoy having endive leaves or lettuce leaves arranged around the edges to make it look really pretty. And then it becomes like a garden, because it really starts to resemble that, with all the different things. Like in a garden you see all the diversity, and that's what matters. And one of the most fascinating discoveries in the microbiome research is that diversity is one of the keys to creating and maintaining a resilient gut ecosystem. Different plants have different types of fiber and different types of plant compounds in there, and some need to be taken care of, like with grains, the antinutrients we need to take care of, but with many we don't have to do that. And all those different fibers and compounds, they have different microbes that thrive on those. So that makes that most foods are just really good and valuable in a certain way for a certain type of, even foods like, with grains it's a bit different because they need to be treated first. But even then, they feed some really nice microbes. So once they're treated, they're great. So like beans and grains, they should not be eaten without soaking or fermenting. But once that's done, they're really good because they feed a different set of microbes. So what that means is that the more variety we eat, the more opportunity we create for a thriving and diverse microbial community. And after that, we'll add some protein to the board. So maybe some traditional cured salami, not the modern process, but the traditional cured one. Or some slices of roast beef, can be really tasty. A bit of smoked salmon or so, or maybe trout, that's tasty as well. And then what do you think about some pate? And if you feel adventurous, you can make your own. It's not that hard, and it's really, really tasty. And those foods, they provide nourishment that really satisfies on a really nice deep level. And one of the reasons that people often struggle with snack foods is that they don't really satisfy hunger. But a board that's built like this around real foods, that really satisfies any peckish. So once you finish eating, you feel more nourished and not so deprived, because that can happen when it's these empty foods. You don't feel great. Frequently some tummy difficulties. I hear that a lot from people who've come from a party and just don't feel great. So you'll feel satisfied and not so stuffed. And then last but not least, we're gonna talk a little bit about some healthy and fatty snacks, like olives in a small bowl with it. They're always really good. And you can have a bit of virgin or extra virgin olive oil on some celery sticks, or with some carrots, or maybe with the lettuce leaves. It's really tasty. What you can also add is some walnuts or almonds or hazelnuts, whatever nuts you can find. And avocado, that's a really good fat, so slices of avocado can be really good. And those don't just taste really good, they also help us absorb the fat-soluble vitamins, and they create a sense of satisfaction. And that satisfaction is something that processed foods don't really provide usually. And then finally, because celebrations should always contain a little joy, we can add something sweet. Not because we have to, but because we want to. So you can think about some fresh figs, some grapes, some berries, some slices of pear, a couple of dates, or maybe even, a little bit of honey, because dipping things in honey can also be quite tasty. So it's about simple foods, about these really nice and beautiful foods. Foods that people have enjoyed for generations. And at this point, when you add maybe some sourdough crackers or a couple of slices of sourdough bread to take, for instance, with your slice of cheese or your pate, then your board's complete. Although, I can actually think of something more that we often don't really talk about, when we're talking about gut health. And that's connection. And that's not really something you can put on your board, but it is something that you can gather around your board. So what the thing is that a beautiful assembled board cannot replace the experience of sharing that food with people that you care about. So when we gather around a table, something changes. We slow down, we laugh, we tell stories, we listen. You've probably experienced it at certain gatherings or parties. And our nervous system then settles, and that benefits our digestion. Because the gut and the brain are constantly communicating, so when your gut gets the good input, or when your brain gets the good input, it goes to your gut as well, and the other way around. So when you do it both, like with the fermented foods and the good company, that's amazing. So when we're stressed, rushed, anxious, or distracted, our digestion always suffers. But when we're relaxed and present and our bodies move into a state that supports digestion and nutrient absorption, that is one of the reasons why sharing a meal with good company often feels so much more satisfying than the exact same meal eaten alone or while just scrolling through your phone. So, perhaps the real lesson of a gut-friendly board isn't only about the fermented foods and cheeses and vegetables. Maybe it's also about remembering that health and celebration don't have to compete. You don't have to choose between nourishing your body and enjoying your life. You can do both. Life's all about enjoying it. So you can build a beautiful board filled with real food, and you gather around the people that you love, and then you can enjoy every bite. And then you can support your microbiome at the same time as you enjoy good company and good food. Because improving your gut health isn't just about creating a smaller life. It's about creating a richer one. One meal, one gathering, and one shared board at a time. So, I hope this resonated with you. If it did, feel free to subscribe to my email, my monthly newsletter. And I also want to thank you for joining me today. And I hope to see you next time. Take good care of yourself, nourish your body well, and don't forget to make space at your table for both good food and good company. Bye.